Hello there, yes, here we are again, yes, we're All Saints Community Centre in the only churchyard that still has only one operating tomb, would you believe it? All the other ones are long, long gone. And to actually get from the gate of this particular old church to here, I can honestly tell you, you need a machete, because it's very, very overgrown. But I got very special yesterday, a dear chum. And somebody who's not averse to actually talking direct to camera on many occasions, mostly live, which of course you know this is not, it's pre-recorded. And he is the fabulous friend of mine and I adore, and one-time children's presenter, would you believe? That's brilliant. He's just done one of those businesses. And also, in more recent times, a journalist for GB News. Yes, it is my dear friend and adorable, adorable chum, Jeff Moody. Hello, Jeff.
What a great introduction that was.
Well, you see, I've said to him on many occasions, when he's live on television, isn't it? I said, it seems to come off the top of your head. You know, get the premise of it, don't you?
Yeah, I don't write scripts ever. I probably should do, but I never ever write a script. What I do is, what I think the secret is to know the story. Know the story inside out.
If you research into it.
Yeah, if you know what the story is, you know all the angles of the story, then you can just go with it.
Yeah, which is what I've just done there.
It is.
Well, yeah, it is just off the top of your head.
So why are we in a graveyard? You say it's a
community the fact
centre,
is,
but the community's
this
dead.
is an old church, obviously. It's the only, it doesn't operate as a church. I don't think it's still consecrated, is it? No. It's now more a theatre. It's got one of those rake things that come out, so you can like a concert hall. There's a huge tracker organ, a proper old bellows blowpipe organ.
Oh, nice.
Which when we came here a long time ago, do you remember, I was doing, it was with Marc and Chums with a lovely Catalan who's unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago now, and I said, oh, does it work? So I put it on. Well, it was so out of tune, I think it cost $250,000 to get this working, and it hadn't been played for 2 years.
Wow.
But that's all. But they use it as an arts centre, theatre. It's got a lovely stage and all that. So it's fit for purpose for doing something completely different, although it's in a graveyard. It's the only graveyard internal to a city like Lewis.
Well, I thought this was a metaphor for my career. Doing it in a graveyard.
I remember when I sent in the message, we're going to change the venue to All Saints, and it's going to be in a graveyard, and all I got was an emoji with a laugh, 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 saying, you're going to interview me in a graveyard. You've said it's a metaphor for your career. It's not meant that way at all. Well, we've known each other quite a while now and all that. We met through a mutual acquaintance, all remain nameless, and we hit it off.
Oh, am I allowed to share the story of how we met?
Yes.
Am I?
If you're certainly going to bring up a certain TV programme too, because that'd be highly amusing, because it's brought up on every programme I do.
Well, see.
Here we go. Straight to camera.
What happens was this. We have a mutual friend who said to me one day, come out and meet Mark, really nice guy. He has a Doctor Who connection. Now, I had just finished reading a book about Doctor Who. It was a scandalous book about Doctor Who. The Life and Extraordinary Times of John Nathan Turner, who was the producer of Doctor Who in the 80s.
I'm on page 200.
He is on page 200.
Only for 4 pages.
I'm not going to say exactly what you did in this book.
Oh, it's all out in the thing.
But John Nathan Turner had a little.
I had an affair with John.
A little bit of a sex scandal.
Sex scandal.
Bit of a sex scandal.
You sounded a bit like Miranda. Sex scandal.
Yeah, but she gets the wrong words.
Yeah.
Sex scandal.
Yeah.
And Mark was the one involved in said sex scandal.
Well, no, it wasn't just me. I mean, I was of age. That was the difference.
How many people were in this sex scandal?
Well, they were sort of being done. I mean, when it all came up much later in life, I mean, they pulled Colin Baker into it and all that. And of course, it had nothing to do with any of this sort of thing. It was all, and it was all sort of around the same time as Savile. But
I guess it was, yeah.
But Savile's situation was a completely different situation, obviously we know, And John was actually more into young chaps like me, and of course I was 21, so it didn't matter. I mean,
I don't think there's any implication, is there, that he was involved?
No,
in
it wasn't.
illegal.
The way the book reads, as far as I can remember, and is that I did have many congratulations from lots of the fans saying, "Well, you put it very well because you didn't make it gratuitous." And I said, "Well, no, because people would," and I was telling the truth. There was no point, and I said there's a funny story connected to it, but about Billy Baxter, but that's another story. But at the end of the day. He knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
You can get the book online now, apparently.
And so when I turned up,
I
met you, I think one of the first things I said to you is that I've been reading about you. You performed a sex act on John Nathan Turner
in the Doctor Who production office.
Yes.
And he'd locked the door, Yale key.
And Biddy Baxter was on the phone whilst you were performing the sex act. And I was quite. The more alcohol we consumed, because it was a beautiful sunny day in Brighton, wasn't it? And it was mid-afternoon.
Right opposite Sainsbury's, wasn't it?
Right opposite Sainsbury's. Drank, and the more we drank, the more I was hero worshipping you, because
I don't know why, but
I'd always wanted a Doctor Who connection, to meet somebody.
Like all my guests, they're all bloody Doctor Who fans.
I didn't quite realise that the person I would befriend out of the Doctor Who world would be the one that performed a sex act on the producer in the 80s. It's all a little bit seedy, if the truth be told.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's a great after dinner story, isn't it? Really, and it's not a story; it's the truth.
It was very much before dinner, though. That's the trouble.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. But I mean, the particular person that introduced us was going around, and that's one thing that I do remember you going on and on and on about. We won't have to go into detail now. Who purported that he was going to be the next Doctor, and of course, you were like a dog with a bone with that one. You wouldn't leave that one alone, would you?
Well, I'm a journalist. You have to prove things to me.
He used to be a children's presenter. He's now a journalist. Yeah, you have to prove it. I agree. If it's not there in writing, if it's not, as I said to you when we were having coffee earlier, I said, if you say that you're in something and you're not on IMBD, whatever it is, then why have you said you're in it? It's there because these days, I mean, that's a wonderful, isn't it? A wonderful resource.
Yeah.
If you went, I'd like to look them up and see them. I wonder if they're still alive. That's what I do all the time, talking pictures and all that. You look them up and you go, oh God, didn't they die young and all that?
Yeah.
But you can put in certain people who said they've done that, and no, nothing. Luckily Stephen and Zellica and all that puts a lot of stuff. I've always put some of the stuff where you do, like I do these and all that. Just because it then gives another link to people who might want to see the show or look up the person I'm interviewing. You'll be looked up, dear. Not before time.
Locked up.
Locked up, yeah. But no, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Don't be a Walter Mitty.
No.
It's the Billy Liar situation, isn't it? Yes. Don't blow your part up. Don't make your part bigger. Yeah.
No,
so
very true.
you started back in the day, though, didn't you? As a children's presenter, if I remember rightly. And you also were an actor because you did a few pantos and things.
I did. Do you know? So I started off as an actor. I decided to become an actor, and so I got the picture in Spotlight, and I was with an agency, and they rang me literally 2 or 3 days after I joined, so quickly, and they said, "We've got good news for you. You've got a part in the bill." And I said, "Well, do you mean they want me to audition for a part in the bill?" And they said, no, they've seen your photo and you were the one, the part is yours. And I was like, that's amazing, first ever gig. I'm like, well, what's the part? And they said, well, you're the title character of the episode. And I said, what's the episode called? And the episode was called Missing. So I said, okay.
So you weren't in it at all then?
What's my involvement then? And the whole thing was this young man went missing before it started. And the whole episode is about trying to find where he is. And at the end, he's dragged out of the canal dead. So I had to pose for photos because the police were showing photos all around. You know, have you seen this missing boy?
Yeah.
And there's a scene in my house, in my parents' house, and they want pictures of me on the wall, you know, and that sort of thing. So I had to go and pose for those photos. So I went into the studios at Bill, and the director said, right, sit here, and I want you to look very natural. So I want you to be drawing something with some crayons or something. And when I say look up and smile, look up and smile. So at the right moment, he said smile, and I sort of, you know, gave a little smile. And on the way out, he said to me, he put his arm around me, and he said, thank you for being such a good sport today. What do you mean a good sport? You know. Anyway, this was the first time I'd ever been on television. So of course, anyone I knew, I told. And I had a little bill party at home, you know, people came dressed as police, and everybody that ever met me knew, you know, all my parents had told everybody, you know, everybody knew. So the episode happened, and my party was happening, you know, and the title sequence went, and then the sergeant comes into the police office, and he said, we've got a case of a missing young lad here, and he shows the picture to the other policeman. And the policeman says, "Well, he looks like looks like he's old enough to look after himself, surely." And the sergeant says, but the trouble is, he has the mental age of a 6-year-old." And the whole of this episode was about the fact that I had the mental age of a 6-year-old, and they didn't tell me. They deliberately picked me and cast me in this part because they thought I looked like I had the mental age of a 6-year-old. And do you know how, it shows long ago, do you know how they billed me on the thing? They said retard. Can you believe that? The episode description said, you
That's
know,
a disgrace.
Sun Hill Police Station investigates the murder of a retard.
You wouldn't even give you a name. You know, you said you were the boy who was the retard. Yeah.
And then, you know, they cut to this picture, after he said, who's got a mental age of a 6-year-old, they cut to this picture of me, like, grinning with these crayons. And my phone just, for hours afterwards, people were just ringing me and laughing down the phone at me.
Of you in sheer total embarrassment. Yeah. Well, on that note, we could be back in a minute. And we're back. Oh look, Jeff, the sun's just come out.
I know, it's lovely, isn't it?
Here we are amongst the yew trees with wonderful Jeff Moody, yes, surrounded by the dead. Which nearly after you playing a retard in that last little segue, my dear, you could have actually continued your career as a retard, couldn't you?
Well, I certainly continued my career as playing dead bodies.
Yeah.
I did a series, I was on a series of, I was laid out on a slab on more than one occasion.
Called Autopsy.
Yeah. I was
but
killed in a terrible car crash in Hendon one day. I had to do film.
They're still
car
clearing up.
Crash. I was a dead soldier that stretched off a battlefield. I got fed up with it in the end. I played so many corpses.
Yeah. But you did actually go into TV presentation for kids, wasn't it, if I remember rightly?
I did, and do you know what the best thing about that is? It was in the days before the internet, and there is no video evidence at all, and I love that. There is not a single clip on YouTube.
But I have actually seen a bit of you somewhere as that presenter.
Have you?
I have. Now, I think it is when we first met, which is, God knows how many years ago now. It was there. I mean, I won't try and find it for you because I will spare your blushes.
It was on YouTube, was it?
I don't know where it was. It just, I looked it up. That's the difficulty with things like YouTube and all that. You can put something in. If you don't have the actual name of the title, you might have your name or my name and all that. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come up. You know, I mean, what was that TV show anyway? As this kid.
So it was for British Armed Forces abroad. Mm-hmm. Do you know you've got BFBS broadcasting to the forces? It was called SSVC. It's the Services Sound and Vision Corporation.
Right.
Which. So in those days, it was a channel that was broadcast to all the army bases around the world, like Cyprus and Gibraltar, and
Germany and
Bosnia as well. And they had one TV station 'cause it was in the days before satellite and the internet, and so that TV station, it might have, of an evening, it might show Coronation Street and then EastEnders and then a BBC programme and then an ITV. It took the best of the day's programmes to make up this channel to entertain forces and their families. And we had this sort of children's TV in the afternoon, very much like, it was when Philip Schofield was doing the Broom Cupboard, that sort of thing. And it was similar to that. Yes. Yeah. I seem to remember I had a sock puppet called Smelly the Frog, which was really, really naff. It was really naff. But yes, I read out a lot of, birthday cards and stuff like that. And they sent us to Germany to do some public appearances with somebody I'm sure you know, Sophie Aldred.
Oh, yes.
She was a presenter on the channel as well.
Yeah. Now Hutchinson. That's her married name.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Henderson.
Henderson, not Hutchinson.
Yes.
Henderson, yes.
Henderson.
I would remember that.
And so she was one of the. It was about 3 or 4 years after she'd finished on Doctor Who.
Yeah, she played Ace on Doctor Who.
Yeah, she finished in, I think, 1989 or something. That was when I think it ended.
Yeah, but she's been back.
She has been back.
She came back in one of. Was it? I can't remember who it was.
It was the last Jodie Whittaker story.
The last Lady Doctor one. Yeah, she was in. And I never took, as it got older and older, I never really took to the last ones. Although I've met them all. I remember the last time I met Sophie was at Stuart Money's funeral, and I looked down and all that, we're on the Vino Tinto, I looked down at her boots and I said, they're absolutely gorgeous. She said, what? I said, your boots. So where did you go? Oh, in the States, Chicago, when I Doctor Who convention. So that's how it was all hit it off. But she was in that.
She's lovely. Absolutely lovely. And I've stayed in touch with her over the years. I mean, this was like, must have been like 30 years ago nearly that I worked with her.
Oh God, yeah.
But I've stayed in touch with her, and I've seen her at a few Doctor Who things over the years.
Well, it was 87 when it finished, didn't it? When
I think it was 89.
87, 89 when it finished. So yeah, that's of course a long time ago. Yeah.
I know. But so her and I went off to Germany and did this sort of public appearance thing, signing autographs with kids, and we did a show. We did a sort of stage show for children, the two of us, which was quite fun. But I had far too much to drink one night. I let myself down a little bit. Somebody in the hotel offered me some Jaeger bombs.
Oh.
And I didn't quite know.
Thank God you didn't offer those to me. I'll be all over you like a rash.
And I had far too many Jaeger bombs, and I made a bit of a fool of myself. And I didn't end up working for them very much longer after that. I think that put paid to my career as a children's presenter.
Yeah. Well, no, we all learn by our mistakes, don't we?
Yes, I wish I had learned, but...
Yeah, but I mean, you could have ended up, continuing in that career on that level of being a children's presenter for very long if we hadn't had a few Jaeger bombs and all that, but you went in a completely different direction. But I mean, I assume you were still acting.
Yes, probably, yes.
Yeah. I mean, It's like me, you look at it, you look at your CV, I mean, I look at mine and I'm going, what's that? Can't remember it,
Yeah.
And I had some cleaning women round the other day because the council very kindly have now cleaned my flat out because of my disabilities. I'm not able to take the rubbish down, so they very kindly had all these beautiful women come around. And they noticed a few Doctor Who things and all that, and they looked and they saw this, my favourite film's Oliver. And I said, well, strange enough, I was in that.
You were?
Yes, yeah, blink and miss. 3 seconds and all that with Audrey Laybourne.
So how old were you when you were in all of them? 8. Did you have any lines?
No. There were hundreds of us.
Were you in the...
Who Will Bide?
Oh, were you?
Where? I got close up.
Did you?
With Audrey Laybourne.
I don't know who Audrey Laybourne is.
She was one of the roly-polies.
Right, okay.
Yeah, Les Dawson's.
Yeah.
And I ended up being her agent. I mean, it just goes to show that things come round and all that. But, it's fascinating. I said every time I seem to put if it's on the box, I seem to switch on just as they're starting up Who Will Buy My Sweet Red Roses. I've got one because it's a lovely song as well.
Yeah,
and all that.
Yeah.
And my friend Jill, who you know as well from Facebook, one of her nieces or something like that on that side of the family was one of the little girls who gets chucked into the fountain in the same musical segment. and all that. So, you know, we do go back a long way and all that. You think to yourself, oh, isn't that lovely? But I never, you know, can't remember much about it because you're so young.
What do you remember about it? Do you actually remember?
I've said this several times on the show. I remember long buns, lots of pop, and very long coach journeys.
Right.
That's about it.
Yeah.
And they also, because it was filmed at Shepperton, also the Daleks were there.
Right.
Because they still had some of the Daleks from the two 65 and 66 Dalek films. So this was 67, 68 and all that. So they were still there. So that's for the first time I came face to face with the Dalek. But of course, you know, no photographs of it and all that. We didn't carry, you know, when you're 8 you don't carry cameras and things like that, not like today. But all got our own little mini studios, haven't we? You know, and all that. It'd be lovely to have those memories. But no, that's the sort of thing, you look back at something and you think, what, when, you know, like you just said, I can't remember what I've done. You know, I was in briefly in Prince and the Pauper with Nicholas Lyndhurst.
Right, yeah.
About 1970, 76, something like that, whatever. Filming in Canterbury. And I bumped into him because Janie Goddard, who once was the only female Cyberman when they started doing the Big Finish stuff, was in with with Julian Glover, Nicholas Lyndhurst doing the dress-up, and she was in it as well. So they all came down Theatre Royal, and I was standing there next to Nicholas Lyndhurst. I said, "You won't remember me." And he said, "What, do you think I should?" And all that, because everyone thinks he's like Rodney. He's not. He's a very intelligent man, very, very nice guy. And he said, and I said, "Prince and the Pauper," and he went, "That Mark," and he remembered.
Did he?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a Cyberman question for you. You were talking about Cybermen just then.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very famous picture of a Cyberman off duty, smoking a fag.
That's me.
And somebody told me it was you.
It is me.
And that's definitely you.
It is me.
Is it?
Mm. So it was done in black and white. David Beasley took that photograph. It was at Blackpool. We were doing a, what do you call it?
Why were you dressed as a Cyberman in the first place?
It was, that costume was a Revenge of the Cyberman costume. It was a sort of publicity thing, helping with the exhibitions that was in Blackpool. And so they couldn't find the gloves, hence I haven't got any gloves on. And somebody very kind, because it was taken in black and white, somebody very kindly colourised it, so it looks even better, you know, in colour. And apparently I've gone viral.
Let me get this right. You're there entertaining children and publicising
but there weren't any
TV show, dressed as a Cyberman, and you're smoking a fag.
Well, I wasn't actually smoking it because the fag is not big enough. It was too big to get through the slit.
Ah.
It was all a gag.
Staged.
It was all a gag.
That's disappointing, isn't it? Isn't that disappointing?
Well, people say, oh, you know, I can't remember. I think that's another one of those days when we all got a bit piddled afterwards.
That does seem to be a bit of a theme, doesn't it?
Certainly when it comes down to Who, it's totally run on alcohol.
But is that not part of that particular era of television?
Oh, God, yeah.
Because the first job I had was at ITN. I got a job as an autocue operator on ITN. That was my first job out of uni in 1989.
Invented by Mervyn Pinfield.
Correct. Yes, that's right. Another little Doctor Who connection. Yeah. But in those days, it was quite a skilled job. It wasn't. I mean, now it's all automatic.
But
I
love
autocue. A lot of typing and a lot of, you know.
Yeah, I love autocue. It's a wonderful thing, you know, because I can't learn lines.
But when I joined ITN back then, everybody was drunk. By News at 10, everyone was drunk as a skunk, because it was that culture. You know, there were pubs all around the ITN building at the time in Wells Street. And the
BBC was just at the BBC clubs. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And it was like 40p.
Yeah.
You could get steak and chips at Television Centre for 45p, steak, chips and salad and a drink, 45p.
Yeah.
And not a piddle-ass little thing like that. You know, you're talking a proper that. But the same that TVS was the same, Television South at Maidstone.
Yeah.
How number 73, because I was in that briefly, Sandy Toxley, how they ever got that live on air on the Saturday morning is beyond me. On the radio, I had 250,000 listeners.
Did you?
When I was on the radio, yeah, for Evoke Radio. Yes. Quite so, yeah, it was a worldwide web broadcast. Loved it.
Oh.
I did 3 hours a week on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And after 9, it was time for wine. So we'd have a drink, and we would then do a...
But it is so funny how alcohol was so prevalent then. I remember when I worked at Meridian, quite a few years ago, probably 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
There was a lovely guy there who I won't name, but very good friend of mine at the time who used to like a drink or two. And we'd always go out at lunchtime, everyone would go out for a big old boozy lunch, 3, 4, 5 pints.
Television centre was the same.
That was just the thing.
Shocking.
And I wrote a script that he had to voice. And he went into the edit booth to voice it, and he came back out and he said, Jeff, these words here. And I'm like, viral encephalitis? What about it? And he said, they're morning words. Can I just call it an ear infection? And I'm like, yeah, okay. They're morning words. You can't say viral encephalitis after lunch. That doesn't
I couldn't
come
even
out
spell
at all.
it if I tried.
No.
Yes.
I mean, I have pretty much, out of all of the live broadcasting I've done, I have stayed sober, apart from once. I don't ever touch alcohol before doing a broadcast, ever. But once I did, in the early 90s. I'd been out for some boozy lunch or something, and I had to read the news at Channel 5 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I remember that the story was in the days when Bosnia was kicking off.
Yeah.
I had to say Slobodan Milosevic quite a few times, and I remember like going, I can't say this, and sitting down in the corner going Slobodan Milosevic, Slobodan Milosevic, Slobodan Milosevic, Slobodan Milosevic, to try and get it out. And I was like, and after that I was like, never again.
Yeah,
never.
I
again.
have a friend who also was a Doctor Who, my lovely Paul, and he did a lot of work on QVC and all that.
Oh yeah.
And back in the day, because I used to live with them in Chatham back in the late 70s, and we used to like a good old, a bottle of whiskey between the three of us, like that and all that, and then drive somewhere the next day to pick some pneumatic VT up, which is going cheap because that's what we were using in those days. And then he then went on to do live on QVC, and he said, no, you just can't do it. It is absolutely impossible. You can't go on, even on a shopping channel.
But why would you want to? This is your job. It's your profession. You're supposed to take it seriously. You've got to. There's money involved in it. You've got to. It's so unprofessional to go off and get a bit hammered and then go and shoot something. I think.
Well, no, I agree with you. I mean, I agree with it. I mean, we, on the radio it's slightly different because we left it right to the last half hour to have our glass of wine and then do like a little review of it. This week we've got a Malbec. And all that, $8.99 from wherever it is and all that. Oh, it's rather delicious. All the nose on it and all that business. So it was quite nice. That was 10-minute segments, just to do it and all that. But even that, I could not imagine going and doing a 3-hour live radio broadcast, which it was for me. Piddled, because. It bores the audience, and at the end of the day, they can't understand what the hell you're talking about.
Yes.
And it all comes out. So I tell you what, I tell you, all right.
But it's totally changed now, though, in news, because now you wouldn't dream of it. There was a bar at ITN, as you say. There was a bar at the BBC.
TVS had a bar.
Yes, TVS had a bar.
Maidstone.
Yeah. They all did. It was all just part of the... But you can't even imagine it now. Why would you have a bar in your work?
Well, I think at the BBC there was the main canteen bar and then there was the BBC club. But I think you'll find there was a bar on every floor, right up to the 6th floor at Television Centre.
Yeah, I bet there was.
I'm surprised there wasn't a bar in every studio.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, and one in each gallery as well, because it literally ran on alcohol.
Yeah, I know.
Alcohol. Which these days, as we know, you just can't do it. it becomes. I think, for me, you know, when I watch a lot of television these days, I always think, they've done that really well. Certainly on newscasting. Yes. Or actually, no, yeah, I agree with the way that's come across, you know, and all that, which we'll get on to in a minute. But there are times you look at it and you think to yourself, when do these people sleep? So on that note, we'll find out after the break. The question before the break was, when do they sleep? Now, you recently went, when we first met, some time ago now, on that boozy afternoon out, talking of television and booze, you then announced to the incumbents around the table you were off to Beijing.
Yes. Yep.
And my first point was, if I find out you're eating dogs, I will be really upset.
I would be just as upset.
Yes, thank God, because he has dogs.
I do.
And you said, I'm only going for 12 months.
Yeah.
How long were you there?
I was there 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
Tell us about your adventures in Beijing.
Oh, I loved it. I loved Beijing. I really did. It was a very easy life. I mean, they didn't. So I was an international news anchor for their international
I've seen
news
you sent me some VT of it, so
yeah.
It's lovely to see that. You know, you think,
Yeah.
that's how he does it.
A big, sexy studio.
It
big
looked fabulous.
lights everywhere.
Yeah.
And cameras that moved.
Not like the
around.
BBC little squat ass things like that. They've got no room in it at all.
And because it's all communism, there's workers everywhere. There's workers. I mean, for instance, and money. So much money. For instance, we did a little thing from a 10-minute section from a garden show in Beijing, a sort of expo, plant expo thing, like Chelsea, the equivalent of Chelsea.
Yeah.
You know. And so I turned up there for this to do a 10-minute section into the news, and we must have had a crew of over 100. They built this studio, glass studio, on a revolve. So as you were doing it, revolved round to see different areas of the garden. And
London Palladium.
We had 20 cameramen and 20 cameras, all manned, and crews that came in with I've never seen anything like it in my life, just for this one little segment. Yeah. And it's so different to how things are here, when more and more now television is just. It's just you and a camera. I mean, as you were saying, I've been working, as a correspondent for the southwest of England for GB News recently, and that is literally just you and a camera.
Yeah.
You literally have a rucksack with a camera in it, and your tripod and your microphone, and
hopefully park near to a place you can get a cup of coffee.
That's the aim. Yeah. You pitch up and set your camera up and press go. And
you said you were going. When I remember it very well. Mark, I'm only going to go for 12 months. And I went, yeah. And then you're still out there. And of course, by that time we were friends on Facebook and all that, so I could see what you were up to and all that. So it was nice to keep in touch. And I said, he's taking his time to come back, isn't he? And it went on and on. It was 3 years.
Well, you see, they underworked us. It was lovely. They said I had a 3-day week. I was doing a 3-day week, full pay, but they only wanted us 3 days. And they said to me, it's a 4-hour shift. And they said, which one do you want? Do you want mornings, afternoons or evenings? And I'm like, have I got a choice? And they said, yeah, which do you want to do? And I said, well, afternoons, please. So I worked 2 till 6, 3 days a week. And there was a lunch break in that period, from 2 to 6.
Not a boozy lunch, of course.
No, most definitely not. But they really, so it became a good gig. I mean, some people, after a while it becomes quite dull, if you're not actively engaged. You want more out of your life, just turn up 3 times a week. But for 2 or 3 years, I loved it because I was learning Chinese. And
how was your Chinese?
Well, I had a lot of lessons.
Go on, say something in Chinese.
Say something in Chinese?
Yeah, go on.
我的汉语不太好。
汉语不太好。
但是我学习。
See, I'm learning. I have the foggiest idea what he's talking.
I've just told you that my Chinese isn't very good, but I'm practicing.
Well, it's a lovely thing to have as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I would, looking at all the beautiful writing it has its form, I look at it and I say, how in heavens do they work all that out?
I know.
And certainly for somebody who's anglicised like us to try and work it out and then convert from the normal Latin alphabet or Arabic alphabet as we have it here now into from a Romo-Greco sort of look into that sort of beautiful.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it tells you so much about Chinese culture and who they are. These little characters. Like for instance, the word "hao" is the word means good. Now a lot of them are pictures, aren't they? So they're sort of pictorial things.
They look pictorial.
And you think, how do you sum up the word good in a picture? How do you draw a picture to illustrate good? And what they do is a picture of a woman and a baby put together, very basic stick drawings of a woman and a baby, and they put those two together and that means good. So that's when they first sort of invented the
So a lot of the actual pictorial look of the thing, in the mind's eye of an Englishman looking at it, if you can imagine it as just a picture,
yes,
you could actually come up with your own interpretation and translation of it. Isn't that fascinating?
Yes, it really is. It really is. Somebody said, "Well, how do you draw a picture of good? What's good in life?"
Yeah.
Or my wife and kids. You
know, And how was the food? I bet you don't get a Chinese these days delivered, do you?
The trouble with proper Chinese food, it's nothing like the Chinese food.
Oh no, we have
English
Chinese.
They've never heard of spring rolls. They don't have prawn crackers. None of that.
Yeah, that's all an anglicised.
It totally is.
From that place there, that totally Chinese supermarket up Pearly Way. That's where that all comes from.
Yeah. But they don't have. We're a bit squeamish about meat. We don't like the meat on our plate to look like an animal. They don't have that squeamishness at all.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not criticising them for it because until the 1960s they were starving. They could do. They'd be desperate for any meat they can get. But so, for instance, you might a rabbit's head might turn up on your plate. Just the head. They've chopped off the head, cooked it a bit, and it's there with the ears and the eyes and everything. And you're like going, and you're like,
how do I pack it?
Does not look appetising. Or it might be a fish's tail. They just chop off the arse of the fish and there it is.
Yeah.
And so many times like that, something would come and I'd be like, I can't cope with this. I remember I was in a restaurant once and I'd ordered this soup and I sort of dug my chopsticks into the soup and this brain came out of the soup. Just a brain.
The brain of Morbius.
The brain of Morbius. This brain just rose out of my soup and I shrieked. And I felt so bad, so guilty afterwards because I was in a Chinese restaurant with Chinese people and there's me screaming about the food, And I was like, I can't believe I've screamed. But it really frightened me as this brain rose out of my...
Oh, I know that in certainly up north, they do eat a lot of brains, calves' brains and things like fried. In this country.
Yes, but it probably doesn't look like a brain.
It doesn't look like, no, because it's sort of, and all that. But when I was in Singapore, when I was air cabin crew, the only thing I tried because somebody had it on their plate was chicken's feet.
Oh.
Why did they bother? There's
I know.
On them,
I remember one of, every now and again you'd have what we call a bad China day, which is the day when just being in China just got to you.
You wanted just steak and chips?
Yeah. And there was this one day when I was flying from one part of China to another and we had to catch another flight and the first flight was delayed. So we missed the other flight and we were stuck at this airport for, I think it was 16, 17, 18 hours. It was long time. And we were in the departure bit, so there was no food or anything. Water was all we had, and the Chinese kept saying, we'll provide you when you get past a certain number of hours that it's delayed, we'll give you free food, and we're waiting and they keep saying, yes, we'll have some, this free food will arrive shortly. Anyway, eventually it arrived and it was a massive plate of chicken's feet, piled high, just a big pile
Your
of
wife comes
chicken's
from Hong Kong, doesn't she?
feet.
Sweet, yes.
Does she like chicken's feet?
Does she like chicken feet? Well, I tried them. They were vile.
I can't. And my cameraman was eating this chicken's foot, and then you know, he had a bit sticking out of his mouth, and there's like a toenail, the end of this like foot, and a toenail sticking out of his mouth.
I mean, I find it difficult to clip my dog's claws, you know, rather than... No, I tried it and I said, oh, no, that's too much for me. I mean, it's something where you think, I fancy a Chinese tonight in this country. No way. I mean, you can get some really good Chinese in London, which is proper Chinese.
Yes.
But there is nothing in Brighton that is a proper Chinese restaurant.
Chinese hot pot is lovely.
Where's
Good
that?
old hot pot.
Is that here? Because
yes, you can.
Yeah,
I did have one in Exeter a little while ago, so I know there are traditional Chinese hot pot places, but if you see somewhere that says traditional Chinese hot pot, that's lovely. So you've got your big sort of steaming, a bowl of boiling oil, with lots of chilies in it and stuff, and then they bring you all this meat and mushrooms and
almost
vegetables,
do it yourself.
and you do it yourself. Yeah,
lovely. Oh, I love that. I mean, there was a lovely
really
place
nice.
down here that was the converted ABC cinema, and for a while it was something called Days, which was a mixture of all cuisines, Chinese, Japanese, Greek, American, you name it. No English. You know, so you had everything from proper sushi to Chinese that looked like proper Chinese, and it was an all-you-can-eat. Well, my husband used to go in there, and he loves prawns. And he wouldn't think anything of having a plate full of prawns, right? 3 times. Piled high like that. And you know how much it costs? All you can eat.
How much?
$9.99.
Really?
It was only open for a year.
I expect it was.
But I tell you, it was lovely. And I remember we went for a birthday in there. So you had anything you wanted. You didn't just have China, you could have anything you wanted. And if it was your birthday, they'd bring you a cake with a candle in it. Well, by the time of the end of their tenure there, it went down to 1 slice. No candle.
Right. Yeah.
That's how bad it was. And then they ran off without paying the rent. And there was about £250,000. But I missed that because I love an all-you-can-eat.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's not the real thing. But I look out for a Chinese hot pot. I really will.
They have a different view about eating than we do.
A bag of Walkers and a sausage roll.
Yeah, none of that.
None of that.
It's if you stop for lunch, you stop for lunch, and it's an hour and a half, and it's catered.
Yeah.
You know, and you get courses and courses coming, and you know, steaming bowls
Not good
of
for the
rice.
waistline, Jeff.
No, I know. I got really fat when I was over there.
I've lost weight though, you see, because we've been diabetic. I mean, mind you, I did have a few custard creams for breakfast.
Custard creams for breakfast?
Well, I just found you know, I don't know I've got a very savoury tooth, thank God. So for being a diabetic on insulin and all the babies rattling the high wind, I can actually go with that. I can walk down the cake aisle when I was able to walk down the cake aisle and say, no, you're not having any. No, you're not having any. But you know when you suddenly get that feeling, you go, oh, I wish I had some ice cream. My Sainsbury's delivery arrived this morning, and you know what was in it? I've looked in the fridge. You know what was in there?
What?
Bloody great big tub of vanilla ice cream. I didn't even know I had that. So I might be having that later with some custard creams. But this morning I had my lovely sort of Germanic style breakfast, which was sauerkraut, sardines, Frankfurter, and all that, and sour bread.
You're one of these people, Mark, that every time you eat anything,
I've got
you post it online.
If I hadn't been an actor, darling, I would have been a chef.
I know what you've eaten every day for the last 4 or 5 years.
There's a lovely photograph of you at your lovely house. It's apparently very small, but by the look of it on BT, it's huge. Built it himself. Well, he didn't build it himself. He's had it built. And there's you sitting outside looking over your estate, 2 plates. It looks like a roast chicken dinner or something.
Yes,
and I looked at that and I went into Zoom. I wasn't looking at you at all. I was looking at what was on the plate. No, I like doing that because a lot of my friends then say, oh, can I have the receipt? It always reminds me, upstairs, downstairs, where Mrs. Bridges used to come and say, "Oh, I've got a receipt from the Women's Journal. Quail. I know His Majesty likes quail." He has quail at every dinner party and all that. Yeah. So in those days they were called receipts, not recipes.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
So I always liked that because people then say to, "How did you make that?" And I've been very inventive and all that. But I mean, I couldn't be a vegetarian. I tried that for 3 months, 3 or 4 months. Dreadful. And I love the burgers. That's my favourite. But with my dental problems and all that, I mean, occasionally I'd love to have a really nice juicy steak. So I love making soups because that's an easy thing to do.
Yes.
And people, "Oh, just tell us how you made that and all that." And they're so simple. Nothing in my place is ever wasted, as you probably noticed by my whole menu for the past year. Yeah.
Most of the things you cook look like soup, even if they're not soup.
Well, you can have green gazpacho, you have red gazpacho, you can do all sorts of, the gazpacho is so good to you. And of course you can have the sort of, there's the, what they call the Bloody Shame version gazpacho that hasn't any vodka in it, or you can have the Bloody Mary version of gazpacho that has vodka in it. And just a little dash of vodka in it, or a little dash of sherry if you've got it, just gives it that little lift.
Very nice too.
And it's good for you.
Yeah.
Get more than your 5 a day there, dear, I can tell you. Right, let's move on to our last little bit today, because it's been brilliant. I've loved it. I hope you have too.
Yes, I've had a very nice time so far.
But we don't often get together.
Next?
Yeah.
No, we don't, that's true.
GB News.
Yes.
Well, I remember I was watching the box and I got a little bit bored with BBC, Sky, ITV. Well, they don't do ITV news channel anymore anyway. They don't really do it. Just they do the TX on their normal broadcast channels and all that. So I thought a lot of people were dissing GB News when it first started. And I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And then they said, and now we're over to Jeff Moody, our South-Western correspondent. I went, what? And there you were, talking about, was it potholes or something?
Probably.
Something.
I spent a lot of time talking about potholes.
And so the only reason I was really following GB News was because I wondered if Jeff's going to be on today. And one particular day he was on in Devon on a beach in really, really cloudy, horrible weather, talking about sun cream.
See, they never, when they, you know, they never listen to what us reporters tell them. So they'll have rung up and then I said, oh, it's really sunny today, let's have you on a beach talking about sun cream. And I'm like, well, it may be sunny where you are in London,
but it's not down
just
here.
So you know, it's raining here,
I remember,
and cloudy,
I remember your segue to camera. It made me
like,
laugh.
no, it'll be fine, you know. And so there was a lot of times like that, yes, I would be standing out talking about sun cream.
Or in some Christmas market or something like that. But you came back from Beijing. Did you go straight into GB News?
Well, we then had lockdown as soon as I came back. So there was a couple of years. And I did some freelance work for other companies and stuff. But then, it was May 2022 that I started at GB News.
GB News.
Yes.
Yeah. And they gave you a car and a camera. You really were a one-man show, because you don't have like you had in China, all these fabulous 20 cameramen and cable runners and all that.
It was a really difficult gig, because in fact I think one of the toughest gigs in news broadcasting, because you had to do everything yourself. So first of all, you're finding the story, so you're looking, because I was covering the whole of the Southwest, so it's like finding stories, pitching them to them, and then you have to set up the story, you know, contact all the guests, get it all arranged, do all that yourself, turn up with the camera on your back, you know, on a rucksack, and get it all out, set it all up, mic it all up. If it's live, you then, you know, press a couple of buttons on this little gadget, and then you're broadcasting live, and you're doing it all on your own. Or if you're doing a report,
and you've got to drive back, and you've got to drive there as well,
and you've got to drive
and drive back.
And very often, you know, I mean, the Southwest is huge. Yeah. You know, and I don't think people in London appreciated that.
I did, because you said, oh, Mark, I've got to be up at 4 in the morning. I said, where are you going now?
I know.
You know, ridiculous.
Because they would say things like, oh, we'd like you at Bristol Crown Court at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning to go live. and then your shift time would start at 6 a.m. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. If I'm on air at 6, it means I need to be parking up at 5ish.
Yeah,
because you've got to, get there nice and early, make sure there's a parking space, set your camera up, think about what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So I need to be aiming to get there at 5. It's 2 hours away from my house, so it means I've got to get up at 3. I've got to leave the house at 3.
Well, you live in Basingstoke, don't you?
No, North Devon, near Barnstaple.
Why did I say Basingstoke? Where is Basingstoke? I don't know.
That's in Hampshire.
Oh, is it?
That's
Ignore
quite
me.
near here. Yeah. So then I've got to get up an hour before to shower and get ready. So I'm up at 2 in the morning in order to get on air at 6.
Yeah.
And they never appreciated any of that. It would always be like your shift would start from the moment you're on air. And I had an issue with that over the years because I think there was a lot of, for a start on a health and safety level, you have to include the time, the driving time as part of your shift. Because, very regularly I'd be driving for 6 or 8 hours a day.
Yeah. I remember you pulled up once on when you'd had a long day and you pulled up just for a chat. Do you remember some time ago?
Yes.
I think I cheered you up a bit because I said, don't want to be rude, Jeff, but you did look a bit rough today. You said, I haven't slept.
Oh yes, you were very nice, weren't you, messaging
Well,
me?
no, but I'm like
on social media saying, "Oh God, you look rough today."
I was actually complimenting the way that you got over it because I don't sleep. I really have a great deal of, and how you can get up, do all that driving, set up, write it, do that, find all the stuff and all that, and then drive home.
And there's also
when do you sleep? That's what I meant. When do you sleep?
Yeah, I know. And there's also a safety issue when you don't have a camera operator, because if it's me and a little camera like this, and you've pitched up somewhere, because it's a news story, you're not often going to be in a very safe place. It's going to be because there's a protest or something's happened or a stabbing, or those are the sorts of places you're going to be at.
Yeah.
And you feel quite exposed because very often it's in the dark.
I'll be terrified.
And you're like 6 in the morning in a cold winter's morning, middle of December or something, pitch dark, and you're on a street corner or by an alley or something, broadcasting live. And so you're concentrating because you're delivering your script and you're delivering your story and you're concentrating on what you're saying. You've no idea who's walking around behind you. You've no idea who could be coming up behind you. And one of our reporters was mugged on camera. She was attacked on camera, and they could see at home that someone was approaching her from behind, but she had no idea. But another one, quite funny the other day, this guy. I wish it had happened to me because it's a great story. Yeah. He was doing this live like this, and he had a light set up here, so he had all his kit around him. It's just him, and he's broadcasting live, and he hears this tap 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 sound, and he thinks, "What the hell's this?" And he looked round, and there was a blind man walking right towards him, like going tap 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 like this, and he's broadcasting. He's thinking, "That guy's going to walk right into me." And sure enough, he did. He did. The camera went flying and the light went flying, and he had to steer this man around all the kit and somehow carry on broadcasting at the same time.
Well, it's what we used to say at the BBC. Well, that's one for the Christmas BT special, isn't it?
Merry Christmas, BT.
Yeah. And now, of course, you've left GB News.
I have left GB News.
Yes, and taking a rest from it all for a bit. And
yes.
What's for the future then?
I don't know what the future is at the moment.
Enjoy your new home.
I'm enjoying my new home.
And your doggies. What are the names of your dogs?
Noogie and Nelly. Noogie and Nelly. They were
spaniels, are they?
Tibetan spaniels.
Tibetan. Oh,
yeah.
Yes. Mine's an American Akita. Oh. 9 years of age, and that's like a 2-year-old. Mind you, the fur coming out of him now, Jeff, I can tell I could do a couple of Doctor Who salves and some cardies out of the amount there. Still, I wish you all the best. We've had a wonderful afternoon with you here. Thank you for taking the time to sit in this graveyard on these terribly comfy seats. I bought my own cushion. And I hope that we remain friends for a long time, because I do adore you. We're great mates, we really are. Have you got anything to say to your audience as you would normally sign off at GB News? And where you are, because you're in Lewis, so just so you know, you can do the segue out for me, please.
Can I quickly tell you one thing?
Yeah.
My final GB News bulletin was a total disaster. I didn't go out in a big bang at the end. I was reporting on the demise of Jacob Rees-Mogg, and it was pouring down with rain. and it was just me out on occasion.
Yeah.
And I had to put the camera underneath the scaffolding of a pub
Yeah.
to try and keep the camera dry.
Yeah.
But where I had to stand was right where the drips from the scaffolding were
Yeah.
coming down, right on the back of my neck. So
Yeah.
I had water everywhere like this. And I'd forgotten to charge the battery properly. So literally I was just talking and then I just faded away. I faded out of vision. And that's it for me today. There'll be more to come later on where Mark will be talking to some more guests after the break. But for now, from me and everyone here at GB News, bye-bye. Thank you for your company.
That's the way to do it.